Hello, everybody. I hope you're well. And you join me here on a wet evening, ready to talk about all things races and some of my top tips for racing. So as ever, I'll give you a few seconds just for everything to connect up, and anybody who wants to be joining us can join us live. But what I'm going to be looking to do today is talk through my 10 top tips for race days. Now, this was inspired by the fact that we have the upcoming virtual London Marathon happening this weekend. So for anybody doing that, first and foremost, good luck, and doing any marathon or any race event is an absolutely fantastic achievement. So I wish you all luck. But again, the tips that I'm going to go through can really be applied to any races, anything you're training for, anything you're building up for. I think, you know, it's easy to think of a marathon as a great race, which it is. But again, we know as runners, it's really what's relative to us. So these tips can be applied to a 5K, a 10K, half marathon, anything you're building up for. What I wanted to do today is to give you 10 top tips to help you on race day. Now, as ever, guys, what I want to do, I'm going to go through some of my tips. Hi, Alan. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're well. But what I want you to do is interact with me. So first of all, guys, drop into the comments. Let me know where you're coming from. Is your weather as bad as mine is here? Have you been out running today? I'd love to hear that. But also what I want to do is drop your tips for race days. It'd be great to share those with people as we go through. Because what I'm going to be looking to do is discuss those tips and as I say, what the main content we're going to be going through is my top 10 tips for both before, during and after race day. So firstly, we're going to start with the before race. So my first top tip, and probably if you could tell me one tip ahead of race day, I'm sure you've seen this one before, is nothing new. So number one, what do I mean by that? Well, there's a few categories under nothing new. So first of all, the night before, when it comes to food and things, don't do anything that you haven't done in preparation. So I hear this, that people might think, oh, I need to carbo load, or I need to get extra food into me, extra energy in. What I would say is don't do anything that you haven't done during training. You've had your training time, you've had your training period to prepare your body. You know what works well for you. So the night before, don't try anything new. No, go with something that you know works for you, and it's not going to cause you any problems on race day. And that's the same when it comes to hydration. And I wanted to just share one of my personal experiences here. I remember my first marathon. I took with me a 2-litre bottle of water. And in building up for the race, I think through nerves and everything, I was just drinking that water excessively. And before even the race had started, I got through 2 litres of water straight away. So as soon as I started the marathon, into the London Marathon, and I needed to go to the toilet, which was something that I hadn't done throughout my whole training. So I made the cardinal error here of doing something new on race day just because it was race day. So what I mean by this is don't take anything new that you haven't done already. Remember, the race is just something that you've been doing as part of training. It's the next part of it. So if you found things that work for you in training, carry on with that. And again, guys, if you've made any race day mistakes, drop them into the comments, because it would be great to share with everybody, and I'd love to discuss those. And I'll be sharing some of my race day mistakes as well. The other thing is clothing. Now, one of the things that always worries me when I've been at things like the London Marathon Expo is the amount of people I see looking at trainers of things. And I think I really hope that people aren't picking a new pair of trainers ready for race day 2 or 3 days before. So when it comes to clothing, you want to be not trying out anything new. So making sure that the clothing that you use, so this is t-shirts, shorts, socks, underwear, trainers, they're all things that you know work for you. So point number one, nothing new ahead of race day, or on race day, I should say. My second point is what I'm terming protect. Now, what do I mean by this? This is the only time where I might say we can get away with something new. And during race days, if we discuss the virtual London Marathon that's coming up, you are going to be running most probably more miles than you have done before. Now, that gives extra chance for problems to occur. So by protect, I mean, we want to be protecting things like our own skin. So this is the use of things like Vaseline, plasters. I'm sure I don't need to develop these points too much further, but effectively, put simply, anywhere that could rub, make sure you're protecting that. Because what you don't want to do as you get into the business end of the race is find that you've got a problem that's going to affect your race, and you've done all that training and it's perhaps a sore nipple or some chafing that's actually causing you a problem. So the only other thing I would do in preparation for race day is make sure that you Vaseline any areas that could rub. So as I've mentioned, sort of nipple areas, also around our feet where we might blister, can be really helpful as well. You don't want those to be stopping, causing you problems on race day. So that's the first two. The next one coming in, I've just seen Alan comment on there that Vaseline is a must. I think anybody who's a runner knows that Vaseline is a must. As I say, if you haven't suffered any of the issues of not having Vaseline, you're lucky, but you definitely don't want your first time to be on a race day, put it that way. So my next point is the night before, an early night. Get into bed nice and early. Even if you're not sleeping, again, you'll find probably a lot of adrenaline, a lot of brain activity going on, but give yourself a chance to have an early night and get as much sleep, but more importantly than sleep, as much rest as possible. Let your body unwind in preparation for the big day the next day. And that leads me on to point number 4, which is then try and wake up early as well. I think we probably all know as runners, certainly I do, have a tendency things just seem to take me a long time to prepare in the mornings, even for my standard runs, but let alone on a race day. So what you don't want to be is that person rushing to be prepared for your race day. Get yourself up nice and early. Take the time to prepare yourself ready. Get yourself both physically, mentally prepared for the race that lies ahead. So an early night and an early wake up would be my 3rd and 4th tip. My next tip is to get some pre-race motivation in. So again, what I mean by that might be a film the night before. That might be a motivational video. That might be a podcast, something that really gets you mentally prepared for the race ahead. Again, you've been working for this race day. You've been training for this race day. It's particularly some of the bigger races aren't something that come along too regularly in our lives. So really make sure that you're embracing the whole experience. And as I say, the day or night before, I like to make sure I watch something that gets me motivated, reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing, and gets the adrenaline going ready for the day. So whatever it may be for you, whether it's a motivational YouTube video, and again, there's some fantastic videos on YouTube. If you just put in running motivation, you'll find some really good stuff on there. But it might be a certain film that you find to be motivational as well. It could be a running related film or a sport related film, something that really gets you motivated, or a good podcast perhaps, or even a good book where people have shared their race day experiences. Get yourself mentally right and everything ready for the race. So now we're at the race. What I wanted to talk through is some of my tips around race day. Now, first of all, I'm sure this is something that we're all aware of. Just a great point coming here from Gavin. I'll mention this because this is a good one to share to the group. Skin Shield works well, isn't quite as tacky as Vaseline. So again, thanks for that, Gavin. Share these tips in the groups, guys, because it's really, really helpful to share these with other runners. Control your pace on race day. Now, this is probably the biggest mistake that people tend to make, is the adrenaline starts surging once we hear that go, and off we go. And unfortunately, the great work that we've done in training can be outdone in the start of a race if we go too quickly. Now, you would know if you followed some of my content on here that I'm a big believer that running is a science. The one thing that won't lie to us is the heart rate. If the heart rate's going too high, we are going to be producing too much lactic acid. We are going to cause a problem that has to make us to stop. So no matter how you're feeling, make sure you're running at a pace that you know works for you. So control your pace. If anything, begin slow. You can always pick up the pace as you go through, but make sure you don't succumb to the effects of the adrenaline at the start of the race. And remember, what I would say as well is, you have things like heart rate monitors to be letting you know your pace. You have your timings to know what sort of minutes per miles or minutes per kilometers you should be running. But also think about your own breathing. As you're beginning the race, could you still hold a conversation? Could you sing a song? These are just some little tips that if you're not able to do that and you find that you would be breathlessness, having to talk as you run, then we know we're probably going a little bit too fast. Slow back down until you stabilize that breathing again. So make sure we are controlling your pace. Again, something that I tend to find is I'm running is what I like to do is almost find somebody that I think actually they look like they're going to be running at the pace I want to go. And visually, I just use them as a marker. And there's a few things I might look for. Definitely, I'm looking at the pace they're running. But another thing that I always check out around other runners around me, and I appreciate the virtual London Marathon, this might not be so easy, but we're talking about other races as well, is that I listen for people's breathing. If I hear somebody who's got good control over their breathing, running at a good pace, I know this is somebody who I want to be tracking because they're doing things as I want to be doing it. If I hear somebody that is already struggling to breathe at the start of the race, or they're not able to hold a conversation with me, I know that at some point they're probably going to flake out. So they're somebody that I won't worry about. I'll let them run their race however they want to do it. But find somebody that can help you control your pace as well. So yeah, good one coming in here from Vanessa that I should mention as well. Put a post on the running community because the family are awesome at motivation. That's exactly right. That's what we're all here for at the running community, is to try and Vanessa puts it brilliantly herself. It's a family to help everybody get through their targets. And we know, as I said at the start, that it doesn't matter what race we're doing, what we're training for. It's absolutely all relative, and we each have our own targets, which is the beauty of running. So yes, so what I would say about during the race as well, and sometimes this is more difficult, but enjoy every moment. Again, I've done it. I've got into marathons that I've spent 6-7 months training for, and I've just wanted them to finish, and that's such a shame. No matter how it's going, remind yourself that it will be over in a relatively short space of time. But also, this is your victory lap. This is the victory lap for the training period that you've done. You spent months potentially building up for this. You want to be making sure you enjoy it. So as you go around, I like to be visualizing some of my training moments, whether it's been training in the harder weathers, whether it was the harder training run, whether it was the sessions of sports injury therapy because you've suffered to go through to get to that start line. Remember, once you're there, try and enjoy every moment, because it will be over before you know it. And then you'll look back at it, as I have done previously, and regretted not taking in as much as I can. So tip number 7 for race day is try and make sure that you are enjoying every single moment, because that will get you to the finish line. So now what we want to talk about is after the race. What can we be doing after the race? So Gemma's just making a good point here, saying that she can't wait to run on the virtual on Sunday. Good luck, Gemma, as I'm sure a lot of people watching will be doing. I hope you enjoy it. It does look like potentially it might be raining. But having said that, a couple of years ago at the London Marathon, I wasn't running, I was watching. Hottest day on record for a London Marathon, and it was absolutely baking. So I would take the rain over the sun. I'm going to go with the glass half full approach for you. I hope that helps. Yeah, repair yourself. So after the race, what we want to be doing is, and I've kind of summarized with 3 things here in order to repair yourself after the race. Firstly, when you can, get a gentle stretch in as part of your cool down. So once you finish that race, I appreciate, even as passionate as I am about stretching, how difficult it is at the end of the race. But if you can get a light stretch through those lower limbs, that will help you out with what we call DOMS, the delayed onset of muscle soreness that you might be suffering over the next couple of days. To also help with that, we have ice, or general cold treatment. So following a race, if you can get yourself into a cold shower or a cold bath, that is a way to help start the process of repairing yourself. Your body will be going through a big inflammatory response, which we want, which we need. That is the repairing happening, but we want to just be controlling that. So by settling yourself down with some cold treatment, that will be helping out. And the final thing around this tip number 8, is the influx of protein. So protein is there to grow and repair damaged muscle tissue. So something I've discussed before is that if we can take extra protein into our body, that will be aiding us in the process of recovering from the race. So we will move on to tip number 9, our second to last one. And this is to hydrate. Now, you may have already found on training days that when you run, you have to spend much extra time hydrating for the rest of the day, and even more so after a race. So you will be losing a lot of fluid as the race goes on. Yes, you'll be trying to replenish as you go, but I would make sure that once the race finishes, that doesn't finish your hydrating. You want to be taking on much extra fluid throughout the rest of the day. And you can also take on fluid that aids you with things like electrolytes to be replenishing what you've lost from the body through sweat and things. So make sure you're taking on a lot extra hydration throughout the rest of the day, because that will help with your recovery, and it will stop some of the other problems that can typically happen after a race if we get these wrong, such as dehydration, headaches, and also tiredness. So make sure we're taking on extra hydration. And then this brings me on to my final tip. So again, if I haven't mentioned your tips, guys, drop those into the comments before we finish, because I will mention those. But the final thing, and this is a personal thing that I always talk about when people ask me about tips for race day, flip-flops. And what I mean by that is, never have I been so grateful to see a pair of flip-flops than when I finish a long race. Just the ability to allow my feet to breathe and stuff after they've been in my running trainers and running socks for a period of time, that allowing those feet to breathe and get some air and just generally start to recover from the trauma that I put them through during the race. So I would always say to anybody attending a race, have a pair of flip-flops in the bag, or if you're running the virtual marathon and you're going to be finishing at home or someone's going to be meeting you somewhere, have a pair of flip-flops. I personally think that you will be really grateful for those. So as I said, I've tried tonight to keep it nice and simple. 10 of my top tips, and to really try and help you guys on race day. Another one that's come here from Gavin. Thank you for your comments, Gavin. I find CIS or Science in Sport, which is a big manufacturer of supplements for running, really an amazing recovery drink. Doesn't taste too bad either. Great. Great tip again. Really appreciate that. You may have heard me mention before, guys, there's great protein shakes and things out there to help with recovery, but there's the good old fashioned chocolate milk that can work as well. And that definitely doesn't taste too bad. So I've said before, I see that as my treat at the end of the race. So that was my 10 tips. If you are running the virtual London Marathon at the weekend, I wish you the best of luck. I hope, as I say, try and enjoy every moment. You've prepared, worked hard. So this is simply your victory lap. And if you do, let me know. Let me know how you get on. Drop into the comments or send me a message, because I'd love to hear about how you all get on. Thank you for joining me this evening, and good luck. And I look forward to seeing you on the next stream.